Right, a few of you have kindly asked me to show you my Indiana Jones outfits. So that's what I'm here today to do. So first of all, might as well start off with a hat. Now this is an Advintage Fedora factory hat. And I've gone for the Cairo look because my favourite cosplay is always kind of to do the hero midway the film or the end of the film. Hence the cuts and the dirt and the filth. So this Advintage Fedora hat was obviously clean when I bought it. I hand painted all of the dust on there, so my favourite scene is Cairo and the wing fight. So as you can see, the dust is all painted on there, and we've also got some blood from the poor old hapless German who ends up in the propellers. Can we call him poor? Well, who knows. So that's that, and on the inside there's a vintage Herbert Johnson innard basically. And that was from an old hat from the 50s, which I thought was absolutely perfect to cheat this whole look. Now, the thing about the Cairo hat is, what I find with a lot of replicas is they're a hell of a lot better than I think the original Indy hats were. Because obviously when he jumps in the river at the beginning of Raiders, his hat completely goes down like this. And when we see the hat in Cairo, it's got this beautiful swooped brim, which is evidence of a hat being completely soaked. But trying to do that in a modern day replica is so difficult because I think the quality is a lot better. I have managed to get it in this Steele and Jones fedora, which is actually one that I wear personally. I've worn that in some of the many hottest countries around the world. As you can see, when I do this, look at how sun faded that is. And I have managed to get the swoop in the brim. And that was really through. I've soaked this so many times. I can't tell you how many times I've soaked this. And at least all the kind of weathering on the inside of this hat is absolutely genuine. Not the dust. Okay, I put the dust on myself, but then that's because I wear this hat normally, so I don't want to paint the dust on. You know, if I wear this hat in the rain and it becomes clean again, that's the way it goes. You know. So that's that hat. Now we've got Temple of Doom hat here, once again by Advintage. Once again I painted all the dust around it because I want it to look the same every time, even if it's rained upon. I based this on the plane hat at the beginning of the Temple of Doom when Indy turns up at the plane, and it's the hat that you generally mostly see in a lot of the studio shots. And I asked the guys at Advintage if they could put a red inside for me because I kind of wanted it to be reminiscent of the lava pits in the Temple of Doom. So that's that hat, and what I love about this hat is it's like a nice all-round hat. The thing about the Temple of Doom hat is it's not as iconic as the Raiders hat, so it just kind of feels like a run-of-the-mill hat, which is what I quite like. Now we come to my absolute baby hat, which I treat like a baby. This is one of Brian Lalonde's hats. This is a hat he made for me, and it is the Idol Grab hat, and it's absolutely beautiful, and I'm going to treat it like a baby because it's nice to have one hat that you don't destroy. You know, it's good to have costume hats, and sometimes you can wear those costume hats out, but sometimes it's just nice to have a hat that is going to be just remaining beautiful. So that's a Brian Lalonde hat, a screen capped leather, and the ribbon work is just beautiful. The bow is fantastic. And very lastly is a very, very early Advintage Fedora hat, which is on the massive side, but I love it because it just looks like a nice all-round 1930s hat. So I wear this normally out and about. This isn't a cosplay hat. This isn't really an indie hat. It's quite big. It's quite big up there. And it's an old hat, very, very early, but I love it because it's just... it looks like an old classic 1930s hat. You can do so much with this. Right, I suppose now, next thing is onto the jacket. This is a Raiders hero jacket from Wested, and I bought this off Kyle Nibbling. Apologies if I've said the name Nibbling wrong. So it was a pre-distressed Raiders hero jacket. Hero jacket being as well, look how far it hangs off the shoulders there. It's not really made to fit, i.e. it fits you like it fit Harrison Ford. His coat was off the shoulders. Maybe it was meant to look a bit like it was a hand-me-down, or literally just is an old jacket. So anyway, this was this was originally that colour. So what I did was slowly dyed the thing. It took about, I think each panel took about 4 coats of dark brown dye, and then of course after that I had to very subtly weather it, because of course the Raiders jacket was only very subtly weathered. And when you're weathering, obviously always think about areas that will wear, of course the elbows and those kind of bits and pieces. So that's the hero jacket, which is brilliant. And this is my old worsted here. This was made by Peter Botwright back in the year 2000. And this is my all-round indie jacket. Now when I ordered this, there's a few things I wanted to go down the route of. I wanted to go down the route of the historical route. So obviously with Indy's jacket in the first film, because it was silver, they kept trying to colour it to make it look like it was brass. So of course I went for the brass zip, which of course is classic 1930s. And also went for the leather facing on the insides, because obviously back in the 30s, coats, I think there was a lot more leather about, so coats were made a little bit more fancy. And obviously, as Worsted will tell you, the hero jacket was made, I think, in a couple of weeks, whereas this jacket is made, it's a lot longer process. Apologies, Worsted, if I've got that wrong, but this is the jacket that obviously you put a lot more time in to make it fit, it's streetwise, that kind of thing. Everybody loves the hero, but that's the difference Worsted says. Apologies again, Worsted, if I've got that wrong. Now, this jacket, when I weathered it, once again, I wasn't very happy with the colour coming through, mainly because the colour coming through on TV is darker. So I just basically re-dyed every area you can see that's weathered. I re-dyed that, and I shall show you what I did there. So here we go. So the hero jacket was dyed with this. It's called Eco Flow, and this is a brilliant dye. It was actually Simon Holmes who pointed me in the direction of this. Absolutely brilliant stuff. And then here we go. This is the tan colour. So this is the colour I used on all the exposed areas of leather on this jacket. That's that. And of course I couldn't resist having the repaired bullet hole there. So yes, this jacket is my all-round jacket. It's supposed to go along with the myth that Indy had the same jacket throughout all the films, that kind of thing. And here are the alternative gloves as well, which I'll have to go on to the gloves in a minute. Now I am convinced that the gloves he wears in the Well of Souls are two-toned. Now that is always up for debate, but there are some scenes when he says, oh, you know, why do it have to be snakes? You look at the thumb area and you can see the two-tone stitches there. But then who knows? That's always up for debate, that is. So anyway, I had to make myself a pair of alternative gloves. So I suppose now I've got to show you the real gloves. So here we go. These are my Indy gloves. Now you might think they're weathered a little bit too much, but I actually had to check this the other day. And I looked at the original screen used gloves and they were really, really filthy. So I was really chuffed to think and see that I hadn't actually weathered them that bad. And as standard, I don't know if you can see those, but we've got some blood stains on the knuckles. Obviously reminiscent of a lot of fist fights. So yeah, we have to have a kind of blood stain on the knuckles. That's got to be done. I suppose the next item now is the shirt that I'm wearing. So the shirt, yes, it looks really filthy. That's because I always like to look like the end of the film. Also like the whole Hollywood angle, that every angle you see this shirt, it's going to look filthy. So you're going to read straight away that's a dirty shirt. Now, obviously, the black staining on here, this was based after, if you drill into a brick wall, there's a cavity between those two brick walls, and when you drill in, all this black dust comes out, and that's satisfying over here because you know you've actually got through to the wall. So imagine the amount of black soot and dust that you'd get in a tomb. So this is why There's a lot of black all over this shirt, being fall over, pushed over the tomb. Also, I based it on Marion's dress. If you look at the state of her dress when they're on the cliff and they're talking about the truck passing, look at the state of her dress. It is completely weathered with black soot, which is very much what I would imagine you'd find in a tomb. So that's why I went down the black route. And on to shirts again. Here we go. This is the Temple of Doom shirt. Completely weathered. And the sweat was achieved with a moulding silicone. Unfortunately, I don't know the name of the silicone, unfortunately, so I can't really give you the tips on that. Shame the dummy's arm is somewhere else. And there's the back of it with the whip marks when his own whip is turned against him. Yeah. And if I can get him to stand up, hiding in the pocket of the bag is a wonderful blood-stained hand bandage, which I used to think was material from Indy's shirt, but actually if you look at it, it's actually a different colour. It's actually a dark grey. So, right, so I suppose the bag next. Not really much to say about this. Original World War II gas mask bag, slight weathering over the top of it. Obviously still got one of those little things there. I still don't entirely know what these do, but these featuring gas mask bags right up until the 80s, so I still don't entirely know what to do. The leather of the bag itself, just to give it a bit more kind of age, every now and then I kind of wrinkle it in on itself. You might find me at conventions kind of in the kind of quiet moments doing this, just to get that lovely kind of wrinkling effect all over the leather. Just more kind of age and patina, that kind of thing. Temple of Doom bag. Here we go. Obviously after the bridge scene, with Shankara stone. Not the most accurate in the world. I made this when I was 22. It was actually my dad's idea to make it out of concrete, so that's quite cool. At least it's got a nice weight to it. And on the subject of Temple of Doom, we have the machete from the bridge. I built this about 5 years ago. It's completely made out of wood. It's nice and lightweight. That's the Temple of Doom machete. I shall bung that back down there. Bags again. Just have another spare bag here. And then another spare bag, but this is the one I like. This is an older version. I sometimes use this in my cosplay because it's actually got an ant on it. Get out of it. It's actually got two sections, front and back, which is actually quite nice. So sometimes I like to use that to think of that as an older bag Indy's carrying. I forgot to mention as well, beautiful work on the Temple of Doom bag. This is from Kyle Nibbling again. This is look at that, that's beautiful. This is I think it's acid treated leather, which of course gives that wonderful worn effect on the leather, which is absolutely brilliant, which is the condition of the strap from Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, and in fact the Crystal Skull. And that is the genuine article, i.e. what would happen with that. That's the leather just being completely soaked and then just cracking and almost being dead. I suppose the next now is on to the gun holsters. So here we go, Raiders of the Lost Ark gun holster. This was, I think I got this from Todd's costume. Obviously I weathered it up. Got to write his name in there, haven't you? That's got to be done. And here we have a genuine deactivated Smith & Wesson 38, which, funny enough, a couple of days ago this wasn't working. Actually, in fact, months ago this wasn't working. So I sprayed it with WD-40, and now it works a treat. It actually stopped working, so it's like it began working for the beginning of this film. And here we go again. Temple of Doom holster. This is a genuine holster from 1931, which is lovely because it's stamped in there 31. And I had to weather it, unfortunately, but that's just life. And inside is a genuine deactivated Webley 455. Not the Webley green that Indy had, which of course had the bird beak handle and is slightly different in this area. But that's a nice bit of kit. Funny to think that years ago at conventions I could carry this, but obviously the gun laws, people messed about a bit, so you can understand why they've got to be a lot more careful nowadays. People used to abuse those laws. Temple of Doom holster. This is the one I mostly wear because Okay, we have now a convention safe rubber gun in there. I painted that up, put some rust on it to make it look a little bit more realistic for pictures. So that's the rubber gun. But the reason I like this holster more than the genuine article is because it's very flat, which if you look at Indy's holster in the Temple of Doom, it is very flat. I don't know why it's very flat. Maybe it's storage, I don't know. The whip, so the whip holder here is a very gloss dark one, but I customised it because I wanted it to look like it had been cut and Indy's repaired it. But also this little lever tie, it actually works a lot better than the press stud, because I find so many times you're walking around and the press stud just goes. There we go. So this is the old evidence of the fact that this has been damaged at one time. Indy's been fond of it or had to repair it, field repair. So there you go. He's using his same old equipment. He doesn't really want to get rid of it, that kind of thing. And that little lever tie will just keep your whip in there all day. The whip holder I made myself. The belt was a Todd's costume one, I think. As you can see, the belt here as well on the close-up. Notice that when you wear a belt for a long time, maybe it's wet, maybe I've jumped in the river, you'll see the indentations of the buckle. So I've put those in there as well. That was achieved by literally heating up the buckle and then putting the belt on. I wouldn't advise it, because obviously it can go wrong and you can burn your hands. Okay, I was wearing welding gloves, but that was a silly little detail I wanted to put on. Gun belts again. Here we go. This is a beautiful belt made by Brian Lalonde, and it's a Temple of Doom gun belt that he made. I love the patina on it, it's great. This I actually made when I was 19. This is my old Temple of Doom whip holder, which has really survived. And of course at the time I wanted to go more for kind of historically accurate, so instead of a nickel buckle there was a kind of, well, it was brass, now it's turned copper, but at least it looks more in period. Trousers next, I suppose. So these are my normal worsted trousers. I love the cut of them, and as you can see there's painted grease marks. And here we go, the occasional blood spatter, that kind of thing, some unfortunate person. And then I've left out the clean kit. So this is the relatively clean kit. This is a shirt made by What Price Glory. Now I really like this shirt, and it's just got subtle, very subtle sweat stains on it. So it's a kind of, if I'm doing a Cairo scene, that kind of thing, that's the shirt I wear. Very, very subtly weathered. And of course underneath there are the coils trousers, which I absolutely love as well. I didn't really want to weather this set, but the problem is when I wore that in life, I treated it like a baby. So I thought, well, what's the point? I might as well just weather it and then not care. So that's the clean set. Now we've done the whip, we've done the trousers. The boots, here we go. These are my Aldens 405s. They're genuine ones. I got those many years ago, and like with all this stuff, when I got them, someone had really looked after them. Well, it didn't take me long to make them look like this, so I'm afraid that's what you have to do sometimes if you want to. Now, the very last thing, this very last subject, if you haven't fallen asleep already, are the bags. So, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull bag. I weathered this just now actually, because I realised it looked a little bit too clean. And bearing in mind, when Indy carries this, he carries it like that. So that's why I've put a lot of weathering around there, where the finger catches, that kind of thing. You know, where it would eventually just kind of rub the leather away. The interesting thing about this bag, it's another anachronism, I'm sure, because okay, I think it's a German bag, so I like the touch. The war is over and Indy's carrying a German bag. Maybe his grudge against the Germans has gone, which is quite nice. But I don't think these bags came out until the 60s, or at least the 70s, because I'm sure Indy's bag has this PVC base, which the earlier models were leather. But I'm sure he's got the PVC base. I'm not sure on that one. I love the Crystal Skull, but I don't know too much about this bag. I still need to put the old HJ on it as well. And then the last thing, more bags. My pet hate is if I'm going to a convention, I never want to travel with an out of character bag. So what one does is put... I need an assistant to carry my hats. What one does is put everything in either one of these vintage luggage cases, which if you're lucky enough to get yourself a vintage luggage case, you can get all of these signs, these luggage labels off of Google Images. Just type in vintage luggage label and you'll find it. That's a bit of a tongue twister actually, vintage luggage label. Yeah, there we go. And what's lovely about this suitcase, this suitcase is brilliant. I love it. I found this in a skip up my road, and I recognised it as the same case that Indy has in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I looked at it online. I couldn't believe it was. It's the same suitcase. It doesn't have a red velvet inside, but it's got a red flat inside. So like a cardboard inside. So that's that one. That's a little bit too big for conventions. So I've kind of retired that one. That one's heavy before it starts. And this one's beautiful. I used to think this suitcase dated from the 1920s. I mean, it certainly is old because of the size of the leather grain there. And years ago, they used to kill cows in a lot later life. So obviously the grain on the skin is a lot wider, a lot bigger. But I actually saw this in a film last year, and it was in a Wild West film. So I'm guessing this is 1920 odd, but if it's older than that, then that's absolutely brilliant. And of course we've got our little mock Nazi inspection label there. So yeah, I think I've covered everything. Oh, the last thing I haven't covered was a trouser belt. Here we go. So the trouser belt. Now, in wanting to keep with the period, I went for a solid brass belt. And what's lovely about that belt buckle is it says made in the USA, solid brass. Brilliant. But I know that Indy has the Stay Bright buckle there, which of course, as you can see, if it wears down, it'll wear down to brass. Now I don't know when Stay Bright came out, because obviously Stay Bright came out so you didn't have to keep polishing brass items. And these are World War II officers' belts. Now, as you can see there, this is the light khaki colour. That's the colour they came in. Indy's belt in the first two films is brown. So what I did was I dyed this with leather dye. And what's nice about this is you get a much subtler look to it, a much subtler hue, and it picks up the dirt a lot better. And I'm sure that's what they did. I don't think they bought these belts in brown. I am sure they probably just dyed a couple of khaki belts, because I think in those days they only came in khaki, green, and possibly black. And then obviously being a World War II belt, it would have only come in green and khaki. So I'm sure they dyed these belts. And I genuinely think that is probably it. Yeah, I think that's it. I need to tidy everything up now. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. If you... Did I do the whip? Yes, I did the whip. I didn't do the whip. I did the whip holder. 1 minute, you almost got away. So the whip is made by a company called Crease N Corral in Texas. They don't exist anymore, sadly, which is a real shame. But they did beautiful work. I mean, this is absolutely beautiful. Look at how neat that is. That's absolutely beautiful. They did whips film for film, scene to scene. You know, I mean, they did the streets of Cairo. They did the truck chase. They just knew their stuff when it came to Indy. But unfortunately, I don't think they exist anymore. Now this is 10 foot long, not 8 foot long. Now I only found out a few years ago that Indy seems to carry the 8 foot long in most scenes. But I like the 10 foot long because I know canonically they sometimes say 10 foot, and there's a great bit where he swings off a statue in the Temple of Doom and he coils it round about 4 times, and you can do that with a 10 foot whip. And I don't know, just growing up it was that kind of, I loved it, so it was always going to be 10 foot for me, and 10 foot just feels mean. Now I think that definitely is it. I think hopefully you haven't fallen asleep. If you have, brilliant. I've just broken through to ASMR. Fantastic. But yes, I think that's it. We've covered Indy. We've covered clean Indy. We've covered the fact I've got to tidy this all up. Oh, And we've covered the fact that this isn't real. Don't worry, I'm sure you probably realise it's just paint. Fantastic. Be good to yourselves. Stay safe.